appreciate it.
What an intro, dude. Thanks a lot. Looks like you guys got a bunch of cool stuff going on. A lot of rookie guys kind of jumping on and coming to the top, which is really cool to see. But thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. So, a couple of things that I think that is important, especially as a new agent, like when you're getting into the business, raise your hand or like type a one in the chat if you were scared to buy leads like your first day when you're in the business. Because I was. I know for sure I was. And one thing that I've noticed that we've been changing a lot, specifically like with leads and new agents in the business, which we kind of got away from, I think, a little bit, which helped me decide that I was gonna change my lead type every single year just to prove a point. It wasn't anything more than just like a prove a point type thing because everybody was always like, this lead's better, this lead's better, this thing's better. I'm like, dude, it's all the same shit. Just pick one that you like and go for it. But what I would tell you guys is I would never start with IUL leads in general. I would always start with something a lot simpler, like final expense, whole life insurance, simplified issue life insurance. And the reason I would do that is because number one, you only need a few carriers. It's super easy to understand. It's super easy to replicate. And raise your hand if you want to build, or drop a one in the chat, a two in the chat if you want to build a team, because I know everybody probably wants to build a team. The thing that helps people build teams quickly is by creating or doing something that's easy to copy. And like when I first got in the business, everybody was running mortgage protection leads, final expense leads, mailers. So I would call Easton and I would be like, hey, Easton, I am brand new. My name is Calvin. I have no idea what the F I'm doing right now, but please tell me how to figure this out. And he'd be like, hey, dude, buy these leads, call them, set appointments, go to their house, call me when you need something. And I was like, okay, seems easy enough. And so literally my first day in the field, I had booked some appointments. I go to their house and then I called Zach because Easton was in a house selling and I go, hey, I'm at the house. What do I do? And he's like, what do you mean what you do? And he's like, I was like, what do I do? Right. And because there was no boot camps, there was nothing. And he's like, well, sell them insurance. And I was like, how do I quote something? There was nothing in place. I had no idea how to log into my insurance carrier. I had no idea to do anything. And Zach was like, let me know when you figure it out, dude. And I was like, fuck. And so I called the insurance carrier like while I was in the house and I was in the lady's house for 2 hours, but we sell that we figure it out and sell it. Like you can't just wait for your man. The point of that is you can't just wait for someone to tell you what to do. And what if you want to get ahead in the beginning, there's like basically three things to get yourself ahead in the beginning. And like let's just start with final expense insurance or whole life insurance or just general life insurance request, right? What that would look like for you to become a Hall of Fame producer would be how much do I spend on leads, which we know all the Hall of Fame producers spend $2,000 a week on leads. How do I maximize my schedule, which means that I'm doing Monday through Saturday at a minimum from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and I'm working like an adult in the beginning. And then three, how do I receive mentorship or how do I do enough activity to receive mentorship from someone that's selling at a high level? And the way you receive mentorship from someone that's selling at a high level is by doing more activity than everybody else to stand out. Nobody's going to want to help you if you have none of the matrices we need to be able to track and help you get to your goal, which is how many dials did you make per day? How many people did you talk to? How many people hung up on you? How many presentations did you do? How many people did you sell? Like out of those couple of things, if you don't know those, I can't help you because I don't know what you're messing up. Like if and that's really the only thing you can adjust in the beginning too is like, okay, I didn't get a hold of that many people. Okay, how many dials did you make? All right. I got hung up a bunch of times during my presentation at numbers. All right, so it's something in the script or your tonality that we need to fix. I didn't get a hold of that many people. It's either phone numbers or it's new leads or you didn't dial enough. Or, hey, I only sold 5K this week. Okay, how many leads did you buy and how many days did you work? Like there's only a few things that we can really pull levers in this business to make sure that you're successful. And in the beginning, I was really bad at tracking that stuff because there wasn't really any CRMs. There wasn't a way to track any of that stuff besides like taking a tally on your piece of paper right here to make sure that you could track how many people you talk to, right? Now we have Ringy, Go High Level, like the CRM, like all kinds of stuff that help us be better at our job. And so if you're not tracking those things as a mentee or even a mentor, then the mentor can't help you. So if you go to Easton, Greg, and you say, hey, Easton, I'm effing up. I haven't sold anything today. He's going to ask you, yo, dude, how many dials did you make? How many people did you talk to? And you're like, I don't know. He's going to be like, let me know when you figure that out because he's going to be like, I can't help you fix anything. Right. And Cole, if you go to him and you say, hey, dude, um, I only sold 5K that week. I'm sure he's going to ask you, how many leads did you buy? Where did you get them from? How many of those did you close? How many people did you talk to? And if you're like, I don't know, then he's going to be like, okay, well, I don't know how to change your lead plan or increase your lead flow to make sure that you're hitting your 10K a week like everyone else, you know? So, like, those are some things I would tell you to pay attention to very early on in this game, because if you don't do it early, you're not going to do it later. And if you don't do it later, you can't build a team. So, like, those are huge pieces of things that I would track daily. And then, like, backing up to the lead type for each year. Like I said before, like, the only reason I did that wasn't because I loved jumping lead sources. It wasn't because I loved changing things up every single first of the year. It was simply just because when a new agent came to me, they couldn't complain that that lead type sucked. Or if someone came to me and they're like, these leads suck, and I'm like, impossible, because I literally did it 4 years back to back on different lead types just to prove a point. Mortgage works, IULs work, final expense works. Guess what? On the fourth year, I went back to what I did year one because it was the easiest to duplicate, and I got paid the most. The year I wrote IULs, I sold the same amount of insurance and I netted the lowest amount I did any year than I did in the business, because you only get paid on the target premium, and the comps are much lower, like 15 to 30% lower than your final expense or term life insurance. So I'm like, if you're like, I want to sell you IULs, and I'm like, good, I can answer any questions you have. But if you're brand new, you don't have a lot of money, I would never tell you to start there, because you literally are going to be waiting to get paid. You're going to be getting paid less, and you pay more for leads because the leads cost more. So it's like, start somewhere that's easy to duplicate, man. Like, we all know how to sell final expense insurance. It's the easiest thing to explain. If you die, you get paid. Boom. How do you explain that to a client? Everybody can understand that. But yeah, that's kind of like how I got going, Easton, and that's what I would tell you, like, these guys, like that's what I tell my group. And just before we go into the questions real quick, one thing I changed as a manager recently that I've also has been helping, even from like the last 7 days, because I was really poor at this, is I now have my staff send me, or you can do this if you have a small group, is I have them send me 5 people, random people on the IP report per day. And I call those 5 people and I just try to build a relationship with them, try to see what's going on, try to see how I can help them. Because from the outside looking in, once you start selling a lot, sometimes you become unapproachable because people can't relate to you as easy. And they think that you're like untouchable, or like you're doing something special, which you're not. You're just working way harder. And so that's helped me a lot now from like a leadership role, because I'm trying to build a relationship with every single person, because everyone's a little bit different. But if you become approachable enough to them, or you reach out to them, and they're wanting to get help from you rather than you trying to seek it.
I like it, dude. The the like metric well, let's take a step back. The
Mhm.
running out into the field blindly, which seemed to be kind of our motto for a little stretch of time, which was probably not a great plan. I think it's there was a blessing to being super naive when you first start in the bit. Like, we had such a little amount of information that we're just like, sure, sounds good, and then just ran, which I think there's a better balance to have between combining a really heavy schedule, make sure that you're feeding your business, showing up onto the trainings, and then also working a lot. So, you know,
Yes.
us running blind for our first several weeks was probably not like the smartest way to get started, but we had the opposite problem of over analyzing for 6 months until we knew the whole industry before we started on the phone. Like, that obviously is a very extreme version, but there's a good middle ground between activity, working, training, and doing that over and over and over again, and making sure that your business is funded. And I know that you were in the same spot as basically all of us when we first get started. Like, very few people. I mean, I would say probably less than like 4 or 5 that have ever started in the company's history come here legitimately with like 100 grand or more in the bank, or quote unquote rich, wealthy, however you want to describe it. But
Yeah.
usually people come here because they see an opportunity that is built for the worker, not necessarily for like the highest of IQs. And I'm not shitting on Calvin and I personally. It's just, being the high IQ guy wasn't really our thing. It was like the working part was really easy to get, just work a lot of hours. And for context, Calvin skipped over this part really fast, but he came from a special operator, like Ranger tabbed battalion position, where he was really successful in the military at an extremely high level, which requires an uncomfortable amount of work and discipline, not eating, freezing your ass off outside, Like it's a much harder version of work ethic than what we have to do in the insurance game, which is why I think that you excelled on the work side so much. You're like, oh, I'm used to working. I'll do that here and kind of learn as I go.
Mm,
I would say how you and I started, where you do the, hey, I'm going to go out 100% blind, get on the phone day one and hope I figure shit out as I go. I don't think that that is necessarily the answer now. I think we have a really good like get started platform, a lot more resources at hand, more availability, being able to call virtually with your team. Like I never would have been able to take 23 people at the same time out into the field and like, here's how to sell insurance. But now they can go and get on Discord or Zoom or Slack or whatever people use and listen to somebody else who's an elite level closer do the job. So like
yeah.
you have a huge advantage now to be able to plug into all these things and all these recordings and sales recordings and YouTube videos, etc. So this really high level of work ethic with actually training and developing and working is a much better combo that we've seen a lot more fast success. And Calvin, being really competitive versus being obsessed with somebody else's performance on a leaderboard was actually a really big distraction for me early. I kept looking at the Zacks of our company at the time, these 50, 60, 70K a month sellers. And I was like, why do they get to do that? And I'm still shitty. But and then it becomes a distraction from you doing actionable items to improve. So
Yeah.
I wanted to add the leaderboard thing in because leaderboards are put out so that you can go, hey, let's see what the top people are doing and how we can rip off and steal what exactly that they do to be successful. It's not in place for you to go, well, why do they get to be good and I don't get to be good? And that was a big problem for me early. Like I would physically get upset and pissed off that somebody was doing so well, which it had nothing to do with me at all. And so watching the leaderboard and then going, oh, what is Calvin doing to be 500K a year, 4 years on different lead types? Hey, what do you do, Calvin? You buy the same amount of 2,000 of leads a week. You work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, which I understand that everybody's life and schedule and goals, all that shit is different per person. But if you're wanting to figure out how do I replicate what Calvin did to sell 500 grand a year 4 times in a row and now leading a team doing 900K a month, like, dude, you guys are right on the cusp of hitting a million too, which is really badass. That's a big milestone in our business. So I just wanted to add that because you like to skip over your military career, which is extremely impressive. And you also won, I can't remember all your badass accolades, but if you
But there's a bunch of shit in there.
a bunch of
But
cool shit because you executed at your job at that time. Um, so you didn't come from a sales background. So you're talking about being a little bit nervous for leads because you didn't have the money and you'd never sold stuff before. And so now
yeah,
you're taking this huge gamble, and it's hilarious knowing the background of you grew up with Zach and he literally didn't give two shits. He was not going to be your babysitter. He said, dude, you just get leads, get on the phone, go to a house, call me if you get stuck. And then you're like,
yeah,
oh, I forgot to log into all my carriers. She's like, well, call me when you figure it out, Calvin. And you grew up with him. And he still is like, dude, you're an adult. You can figure it out. Like you'll be fine. Take a deep breath, log into your stuff, figure out how to quote, then call me if you need something after. So not
yeah.
getting babied, I think was a huge perk to your career also, because it requires you to learn how to be independent faster instead of always leaning on, like I leaned on Zach a lot. And eventually he was like, dude, we can't do this forever. Like I'm gonna murder you pretty much.
Yeah.
And so having a balance of like, dude, you can always call and get help when you need it. But if it's the same repetitive question over and over, that's that's kind of where we get stuck. Like I can't help you move the needle. So that is the background of where Calvin came from. Obviously, really high level special operations type stuff is a percent of a percent of a percent of a percent of people. And now that's what you're becoming in the insurance world based on years of consistent high volume of work and always investing in your business and trying to figure out how to improve in each area, which is pretty badass. And obviously, I've got to be here for literally your entire career and kind of like watch that progression. But
And I think that one thing, Easton, like that you mentioned that was kind of important that I try to like convey from your training skills because you're really good training and selling is that hey, like if you're waiting for Easton or your manager or Alan or somebody to tell you what training videos to watch or who to go look up, like you're already losing. Like the reason that I got ahead so much in the beginning was because I was just constantly on YouTube searching training. Easton, Jake, Andrew Taylor, Zach, like all Steve, like all these top guys in the company, and I was just listening to what they were saying. I didn't listen to music, I think, for like 3 years, 4 years. Like recently I started listening to music in the car because I got it all memorized now. But like that's what you should be doing. You should be every opportunity you get that you're not calling, which I would never listen to training from like 9 a.m., 8 a.m., 7 a.m. to like 10 p.m. Like that just wouldn't be me. I'd be working. But like all the extra time, working out, whatever, you should be doing your own research and training because that's how you're going to get ahead. Easton's not going to reach out to you and be like, hey, bro, it's 6 a.m. Did you listen to your daily training today? No, he's going to be like, expect you just to do that. And you should do that because it's going to help you get better faster. And Easton, one thing too that I don't like talking about a lot because it's uncomfortable for me, but when I first got in the business, when I got into the army, I actually moved to Minnesota for 9 months because that was like the only job that was available that I knew of when I was coming from W-2. And I went to the W-2 job and I was working some shitty hours. And that's like kind of what got me working into thinking and getting into sales. And I didn't know this, but I signed a contract with them that I had to pay them back all of the moving expenses if I didn't work there for at least 18 months, which ended up being 25 grand. And so that's what got me so motivated to buy leads and get in the field because I knew I had to pay that back immediately as soon as I quit. So that's what helped me. Like you have to put your back against the wall, like get some leads, get some skin in the game, but you have to do something to get you going. Because if you're just living on free leads or like you're waiting for someone to help you, like dude, you're just gonna be it's just extending the timeline of you learning and being successful.
All right, so you were very autonomous in your learning. Cole asked a question, and I'll type some names in here that I feel like were really helpful. And then if you guys have other training that you want, yeah, Harold Duran is a great one. I think his style of selling is very relatable for me. So I like to listen to people like Harold because we sell pretty similar, and like I can track that. So I think you kind of listen to a little bit of anybody and everybody. What you're looking for when you're on YouTube is something that says Hall of Fame producer. If it doesn't say that and they're giving sales advice, I would stop listening to that probably more often than not. I mean, there's rare exceptions, but not really. So if you're going on YouTube, you're just looking up like Family First Life Insurance uh sales Hall of Fame, HOF, like it'll pull a ton of training with all sorts of different backgrounds, personalities, word tracks, styles, and then you just find who you identify with. Mine was Matt Smith. So like Matt Smith was a great one. John Wetmore. Zach was a really big trainer at the company during, his huge 700K. I think he went 406, 550, 700 back to back to back. So like that's somebody that I listen to a lot. And then I also, like we were side by side in the office, so it was pretty easy for me to get access to him. I didn't really give him a lot of choice. I just blew him up nonstop. It was probably really annoying.
I
But
mean, you guys are lucky though. You got Easton, like he is one of the best trainers in the company. Like you would probably put his name in on YouTube, you'll probably find 150 training videos, and you get him every day on Zoom. So you couldn't be part of a better team, a better mentor, a better sales training program than what you have. Honestly, like you guys are blessed. So
well, that's not what this call is for, Calvin.
it's true.
So, but my style might not mesh exactly with your personality. So I do think that's why it's so important to find a bunch of different people that all have hit 400 plus in annual sales and then go, oh, this person tracks with me. And then all I did was look up every single Matt Smith, John Wetmore, and Zach Tradowski video that I could possibly find. And I just got obsessed with going through every single thing that they had ever put out and then trying to steal as much of that as humanly possible and then implement the things that fit my personality the best. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be me or a Calvin or, Ty or Harold.
Mhm.
It could be anybody that you think is relatable that you're like, oh, this resonates with me. I like this style. I was never on board. And if you disagree, Calvin, it's all good because you sell 500. But I think the people that train as I hard close every client I talk to, I don't think that's a real thing that is duplicatable or actually how people sell. I think feel like they're not sharing everything with the class, but this like I hard close everyone and still have a persistent book, I think is a myth. So I'm looking for, hey, what do I think I can replicate in mass that works for me? So I'll throw a couple of list of names in here that I feel like were really beneficial to me. from a phone standpoint, like Calvin, Dom Rogers stuff. That was like how he spoke to clients and was able to change his tonality, whether it was a 81-year-old granny or a 38-year-old pissed off guy on a construction site. Like he always could meet people where they were at. And so I was like, oh, I like that. I want to take as much of that on the phone as I can and then make it my word track version because we speak differently. Um, we just grew up different. So that is really, really key things that I think everyone should be doing. If you're looking to perfect your skill set, treat it like a professional sport. Like think about if you want to have the Kobe Bryant results, right? And you see all these crazy numbers all over the place. Dude was working out like 2 hours before practice and then would start practice and stay late after. Like just a freak of nature from a work ethic standpoint. Like, oh, how did he get so good? It's because he's 6'6" and gifted. Well, he also worked harder than pretty much everybody else he was competing against, with the exception of probably a handful that were equal. So if you want to become the Kobe's or the MJ of the industry, that's the best way to do it, is be a relentless student. So I love that point, Calvin. What kind of questions do you guys have? We can kind of just open it up now because I'd like to, we don't, sometimes we train for so long that we got 38 seconds at the end of the call. So if you're down for some supplemental questions, if you guys do have questions, and if you want him to go through some of his process or some stuff that he fixed, whatever you feel like would be the most helpful, please unmute and ask, because we do get a little bit more of his time, and I obviously want to be respectful. Calvin's a busy dude, managing a huge group, still selling some insurance here and there. So if you guys have questions, please let it rip.
So Calvin, there's a lot of new guys here, and
Mhm.
I'm green as can be too. And so like, what are you teaching your new agents? Like, what is kind of like the thing that helps them out?
That's a great question. So there's a couple of things that I think are super important to touch on during the new agent process. Like, let's say that, they got their carriers, they got everything, they're ready to start dialing day one, right? Number one thing is I give them the script. I will match them on leads, but I do want them to get leads day one on their own, because I want them to have skin in the game, and I want them to feel like what it is like to have your back against the wall, because I 100% without a doubt believe that you work harder when you put your own money in this. Um, I think there's many testimonies that can agree with that. So like and pretty much enforce the standard of like you have to do at least 800 to $1,200 a minimum in leads, so that way I can make sure it makes sense to spend time with you. Because if I'm just putting everything out on their table for you, then it's all of my skin and you have nothing in it and you can just do whatever you want. It's hard to enforce a standard when you don't have skin in the game. So that's number one. And then the second piece of that is I want to see what that person's willing to do and what their threshold is. So I'm like, hey, here's the script. On the script, I need you to mark exactly where you're getting hung up on, or what objections you're getting. And I'm not going to talk about it with you until you get over 200 dials and it's past noon when I'm doing my lunch. Because I'm not going to go back and forth every single time you get an objection, because you're going to get a bunch of different ones. And I want to know exactly what you're working with, and we'll talk about it. And I want you to go do it again. And during that first day, I would expect someone to get at least a minimum of 300 dials, but my goal is to get at least 400 phone calls, get at least 30 to 40 talks, 10 presentations, and if it's a perfect world, close 1 to 3, right? Like that's what my standard is on our team. And once I can get a few days of what that looks like for them, then I can adjust a few things like we talked about earlier. And I'm going to let them know it's going to be hard. You're going to get hung up on a lot. It's going to suck. But once you get in the rhythm and you get paid a few times, it makes a lot more fun. It makes a lot more relatable, and it makes it a lot more entertaining. And you can bear with like all the stress, because it's going to be stressful your first week. You're going to get you're going to get hit with a lot of questions you don't know the answers to. But I don't want you to know the answers to everything. All I want you to do is do the activity. If someone comes to you and when you get on the script, it tells you when to get the medications, like come to me with that stuff and I'll help you through it. But like, I don't want you rushing in here and say you got an objection. I want you to come in here like when you're about to present numbers, and I'll help you and we'll go through the first couple of sales together. Or I'll pair them up with somebody else, like another high level leader on the team. I'll say, as soon as this person gets people on the phone and they're at the numbers, like walk them through their first application. But there's no sense of me trying to explain for 2 hours every day on a brand new person to be like, this is how underwriting works. This is how you log. Like, if you do all that stuff, it's just a waste of time, because they might quit, they might not go through it, and it's just like repetitive. Like, you're gonna figure out a lot of that stuff, and they're not gonna memorize all that stuff. It's so much information in the beginning So like if you can eliminate a lot of that stuff by using your guys' bootcamp, by using your guys' website, by using your new agent checklist, by using all the resources that Easton and Ty and everybody else already put together in your team, use it as a copy and paste, like leverage as much as everyone else's time as your own so you can focus on your production. And when I would say like you're brand new in the business, like I assume, you're brand new, but you also want to build a team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So focus on production first, but also recruit at the same time because Ethan and all these other leaders on your team are going to help you train those people. And the longer you wait to do that, the more it hinders your ability to grow and use those overrides to be able to fund your business early on. Because you might find someone and they may just accidentally figure it out quicker than you. Like there's a few times I've hired somebody, they sucked, they hired somebody else that was really good and didn't need a lot of help, and they crush it. And so there you go in a month. And it was by accident. So like just get
Hmm.
used in the habit of like talking to people, but in the beginning, just get so used to doing so much activity that no matter how bad you are, your activity will overcompensate your skill. And when you do this for an extended period of time, for a long period of time, like my second or third year in this business, I didn't really needed that many appointments to make a lot of money just because I'd done it so many times. Like if I got that objection, I already knew what I was going to say. And once you get to that point, you build the skill over time, which makes it easier, which allows your closing ratio to go up, which allows you for the back of letter words, you just get better and you don't have to do as much activity to get the same result. And that's what you're going for at the end of the day. You're going to get that good to where you don't need to do $400 a day to make 15 grand by the end of the week. You maybe do, 15 appointments and each one's a grand, right? Like you will get to that point.
Yeah.
Never get to that point if you don't dial.
Man, that was an awesome breakdown. I'm glad Easton's recording it.
Wildly obsessed with metrics and volume and activity early is the fastest way to get the information that you're looking for. And I was very, maybe you were a little bit different, but I was freaking out because I didn't know what to write anybody. And like they sent me out, they were like, hey, go to the store and print out these Transamerica paper apps that are 28 pages a piece. America was the only e-app that we had at the time when I started. Everything else was paper. So I'm carrying around this booklet, like phone book size thing of paper apps that I obviously don't know how to fill out. I don't know how to quote. And it was like really messy. So I had that same kind of like mental block where I was like, dude, I don't even know what to write them. As long as I go into this home and if I get stuck, can I call somebody? And they're like, if you are doing all the volume, in the field, it was 25% laydown was like a pretty normal stat. If you had enough appointments that you were running, 25% of people will buy, even if you're horrendous. And I feel like I was pushing the limit on if that was accurate or not early, but that was kind of like the rule of the field. I think virtual, it's probably shifted closer to 20%. There's just something about being face to face that like they can see that you suck, but you're nice, so they'll still buy. And you might lose 5% that we have on the phone now. But if you do enough volume, that 20% of people will still say yes. Dude, I've heard tons of people butcher up like it's all out of order. They randomly jump into like the wrong product and they quote the wrong price and they work through it long enough. It might be an hour and 45-minute call, but that person will stay on and say yes because they still need what we're selling. So you will find those people that will say yes through enough volume. But if you're like dialed 31 times this week, presented twice, not sure why I didn't close any, like I'm very certain why you didn't close any. That's an impossible metric to even track. Like there's not enough info for us to help you. So that 20% laydown rule, I was trying to get as many of those as possible. So if the standard was 30 a week and I could do 50, I would by default accidentally trip and fall into more business just based on math. But the math doesn't work without the volume. The smaller data pool, the less accurate the projections are. So Cole, you got a question? Unmute, dude. Have at it.
Yeah, so what would you say is the best way to perfect the craft of presentation into close? Because I feel like the financial struggle or like worry or pressure of not having enough presentations in to actually close something. Like I feel like I'm getting like I'd say 7 presentations a week, and the last thing I want to do is butcher them and like run out of the leads that I just paid for. So what would you say is like the best way to like perfect the presentation to close?
You're getting one presentation a day, basically on average, with 7 a week. If you work 7 days a week, what would you say your average dial, like how many dials you make per day?
Definitely the dials are low because I've gotten quite a few leads from aged leads and a couple of fresh leads, but definitely the dials are down for sure. I think
Why
more dials to give you more
why are
more
you
presentation for
like
sure.
a lead, or what, like what's your mental block on saying like, hey, if I call these leads a lot, that I'm gonna mess it up and they're not gonna want to buy from me?
I think just losing them in my pipeline of like if I call them, two, three, like 3 to 10 times, then I'm just like, oh, it's a bad number, or they're not picking up, they're not interested, or something like that.
Yeah. So what I would tell you is if you don't close them, somebody else will close them. So like at the end of the day, you have to get past the point of like, hey, I'm called this person 3 times. Like honestly, they probably filled out a bunch of things online. The 3 times that you call them, they probably don't even recognize or even notice or take a second look at. That's why it's so important to triple dial everybody. And when you, how many leads do you have?
In my pipeline, about 275.
Yeah, so you have a tons of opportunity there. And what I would tell you is if you're not hitting 400 calls per day, like you're just leaving yourself short, because I guarantee you if you doubled your activity, you would double your amount of presentations. And if you truly effed up that many presentations, it's okay because one of the 14 people that you get on the phone, if we doubled the activity, will have a checkbook stapled to their forehead. I guarantee it. And with that being said, too, is like, did you have 200 something leads? Like realistically speaking, if I called each lead 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the afternoon, 3 times in the evening minimum. So like 3, 6, 9 times in a day, my chances of getting a hold of them increase drastically because what if they work a second shift? What if they get up late? What if they stay up late? What if they have kids baseball, basketball, drop their kids off in the morning, go to work? Like all these different things that people's schedules going on. Like you have to remember people will still live life and they still have a lot of stuff going on. So if you called them once or twice or 3 times in one day, they might have 15 other missed calls that they probably not going to call back because it's just like another spam call, right? You get 100, you get people telemarketing you too, like I do, like we all do. And I don't ever call them back and I don't even think about it again after the call, after I decline the call, right? But if you called me 3 times, I'd be like, this might be an emergency. Maybe this is my doctor's office. Maybe this is something that's important. Maybe it's the bank. But like you'll never get the opportunity because you're not calling them back to back to back to be able to get in front of them to make it seem like it's emergency because it is an emergency because they don't have life insurance if they die tomorrow, their family gets nothing. So you have to think of it like, hey, I'm the doctor and I'm the person here to solve the issue of what's going on in that person's life. And if I can't get a hold of them, then they're going to be screwed. So you have to come from a helping manner rather than like a salesy manager, vision, because if your vision's like I'm bugging them or I am interrupting their day, then it's going to be extremely hard to get in front of that many people because you're going to feel kind of timid, right? But once we get you to do a lot of presentations, that timid's going to go away and it's going to feel like clockwork, but it's hard to get, it's going to make it longer for that to go away if we don't get you dialing more. So don't be afraid, like long story short, don't be afraid to mess up your leads. Like, dude, we all sucked in the beginning. It's gonna be all right. And the worst thing that happens if someone doesn't like you or they hang up, right? Oh, well, call them back and tell them your name's Calvin. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they might hang up again. I don't know. But like you can call them back and it's gonna be okay because they're gonna forget about it.
Cole, here's this messed me up really, really big when I was kind of going through this phase with John Wetmore, and it was more on the like the closing side than the dial side. But he was like, dude, you're already not getting the sales that you're looking for. So why don't you literally try anything else than what you're doing now? And that has stuck with me relentlessly. So if you're like, hey, I don't want to like blow up and burn a lead just in case, and then you're already not getting a hold of them and already not selling them, it's no risk for you to blow their phone up to try to get them on the line. Like you get the exact same result that you're worried about getting as you're getting now because they're still already not answering the phone. So what if you did call them 24, 27 times in a day just to get them on the phone? Maybe it's to book an appointment, maybe it's to go through a run through call to close on the spot, but you're already not talking to them, so you have no risk by calling them 3 times as much during the day as you are now, if that makes sense. Same exact result that you're worried about getting, you're already getting by not calling enough. So why not just try hammer fisting the phone as hard as you can all day to see how many more people answer instead of being as worried about like, I really don't want to burn this client just in case they were going to buy. Well, you already didn't sell them, so we might as well start hammering that phone. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm going to show you this like really quick. I just pulled Ben's metrics from last week. This is his dial count for the week, Monday through Friday, snuck a few in yesterday on Sunday. Like this is 800, 858, 7, like this is, even if this is split in half because he's got one dialer, he still has to do the other 400 manually on top of what the dialer's doing. And then same exact story. Logan wrote 17K last week. Dude, look at this dial count through here. You know, like really, really high average. So that's the entire point of driving metrics and high outbounds is to get contact to give yourself an opportunity to close. But that's where it starts. So don't be worried about burning a lead that you've never talked to. Like, let's just see if we can get them on the phone because they are looking for some help. And to Calvin's point, dude, maybe they've submitted 15 different things online because everybody wants free stuff, but they also did an insurance one and they're not sure who's calling them. We have to stand out from telemarketers. They don't call like we do. That's what makes us different, dude. Like the telemarketers, they'll maybe do once and then they'll do once again in the afternoon, but they don't go 3 times every 2 hours the entire day. Like that's what we do because we're calling people back. So I think that little shift in the mentality of the volume of dials, I mean, Ben's doing 15 a week. Logan's brand new, like second or third weekend doing 17 G's of submit, who obviously, you know, like, and you go and look at their metrics, like that's when it will start to make a lot of sense. Like huge volume of output equals huge volume of results.
That's facts. I had a guy sell a client on the 64th call.
And guess what? They probably answered like, hey, who's this? Oh, it's Calvin calling you back. Like they have no idea that it was the same person for the last 2 weeks that was murdering the cell. That is why, like, I'm a huge aged and second chance lead fan because there's so many agents, Cole, with that mentality of don't want to piss off a potential customer, which means I have access to a bunch of free money and I get to pay way less for a crack at it. So yeah, you might have to make a few more dials and on a brand new hot lead that gets a text, self books, blah, blah, blah. But instead of paying 18, 24, 30 for some of the new ones, if I can pay $5 to $8 and I get to basically sift through all the people that you didn't feel like blowing up and I'm willing to, that's just free money at a discount for me. And so I think making that little mental shift, dude, it will massively change your results. And once that clicked for me of like, dude, you can, because the very first dial day, everybody almost does the same thing. Hey, we should triple dial. Cool. I'm going to call everybody once all the way through one time just to kind of get a feel for it. And like, well, not that many people answered. Everybody does that, dude. It's not, you shouldn't feel bad about it. You shouldn't like, oh man, I'm screwing this up. Everybody is like that early because everyone feels like it's a weird thing to do when you've never done it before. I'm like, you want me to triple? And the leads that I got, a handful of like free leads on my very first dial day that Josh, they were 5 years old. And a girl on our team, Silvana, had already written all of those clients that let me come to their house. And then I went and did all their policy reviews. Every single one of them she had already closed 5 years ago. But it was the only thing that I could get my hands on for free to start. And that's when I immediately started spending $2,500 a week on leads, which did not go great for me early. But point is, feed the machine, run the volume. Eventually, it has to correct itself with enough activity. Anybody else got any other questions for Calvin while we got him on here?
I got one, Calvin.
Go for it.
Yeah, brother. So when you hop on a recruiting call with somebody, would you take me through just kind of some of the questions you're asking them?
Yeah. So I try to keep it less than 10 minutes because you're going to talk to a lot of people that will overpromise and underdeliver. And anybody that ever tells you that they're the best thing since sliced bread or the best salesperson or the best recruiter, they will be the worst and they suck. So don't fucking listen to them. But what I like to do is I like just to get up, be like, hey, I'm gonna jump on a quick call with them. I ask them simply what they do, what they don't like about what they do, how much they're making, what their schedule looks like. So I have leverage on figuring out like what their true situation is rather than try to sell them on the business. So like an example of that would be like, hey, Greg, like, what do you do for a living and how much do you make? And you'll tell me, I'd be like, okay, like, what are some things that you don't like about it? Why are you looking around? Just same thing like you would do when you get the why from a client, right? I need to figure out like what's going on. And then I can talk a little bit about the business, but I'm not going to over explain it. I'm be like, hey, on average, our people make about 400 dials per day. So they're mostly calling all day. The average commission they make is anywhere between $800 and $1,000. There's no cap to income. If you do one a week, one a day for 6 days a week, that's about $600 on average. If a client charges back, just like if you returned a shirt from a store, that counts as a chargeback and goes against your next commission. And then I like briefly explain the business for a little bit of that piece. And then I say, okay, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to book your exam today for 7 days from now. You're going to send a screenshot of that back to my staff. And then we're going to pay for your pre-licensing course. You're obviously going to cover all your state fees. And you're going to knock that out in the next 7 days. And then once you get through contracting, I'll be more than happy to jump on another call with you to go through everything. But our contracting department is going to take you through all the new agent training. They're going to get you set up with everything. And then once you're done with that, we're going to get on a call and go through everything. But I'm not going to sit there and explain everything because dude, if you do that with every single person, you're just burning time. And time's valuable here.
For sure. Thanks, brother. Are you sending them any sort of, overview video or anything like that? Or are you just hopping on that initial call, grabbing the info you need, and then putting the ball back in their court as far as like, this is how you book your exam kind of thing?
I used to, but it's like the same thing with leads. I want them to get skin in the game and book their exam, which is like $50 for their state minus 3 states as quick as possible, because then I know they're serious. If I send them in a video, then we play a phone tag, like, dude, I got 50 fucking appointments a week. Like, I'm not going to go back and forth to get on another call with you. Like, if you're serious about it, you're going to book your exam and let's get going. But like the people that you'll know if someone's really good where you need to do a couple calls with them, and you'll want to like bring in Easton or someone else, like a high level manager to like actually go through it with them. But 95% of people aren't that people. And
Yeah.
so that's why it's important to get a volume, just like leads. So like what I always go by is like 1 in 10 people. I hired 10, one makes it and one hits IP, right? So like I always want to get as many people into the class and into contracting as possible. And then I'll find the good ones from there, because the good ones are going to reach out to you as soon as they finish contracting. The other ones are going to wait for an email. And the good ones will stick out because they're going to reach out to you directly.
So you're basically, you're not dragging anybody. You're just saying, hey, dude, take care of what you need to. And then basically finding the people who are going to show up for you kind of thing.
Try to drag you through contracting. Imagine how hard it is going to be dragging you to get dial the phone.
For sure.
Here to drag anybody through that process.
Absolutely. Right on. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
And then that activity framework where you said like so many dials, so many pickups, conversations. Can you run that again?
Yeah. So it'd be what you're tracking is what you're asking?
Yeah.
So a number of dials you make per day, the number of talks that you get per day, the number of presentations, and the number of sales. So it should look something like that, what I typed in the chat. That's basically how we track it. And that's pretty much how we've done it forever for the most part, from what I remember. But if you can track that, you're going to be fine, because if you're hitting the minimum and you're reaching out to people that are wanting to help you and that are willing to help you because you're tracking it and doing the right activity, within 7 days, you're going to overcorrect and be totally fine. But without that stuff,
Awesome.
nobody,
Thank you, Kelvin.
And the only thing that I'll add that I do agree with Calvin on the interview thing is there's exceptions to every rule. So like me when I was a W-2 employee, considering getting into my first contract sales job is a different conversation with Calvin and I than someone who's got 5, 8, 10, 12 years of like high level contract commission sales experience. They built teams before. That's definitely a different like one-on-one conversation. But all of the like me and the Calvins that like you have never sold stuff before, like I don't need to know really I don't need to know like, oh, how do I sell my business? Like, dude, I'm just trying to figure out, can I get paid selling insurance here? Like that's the information that somebody like me needs as I come into the industry for the first time, versus like you're recruiting someone who's like built and, has record sales at all these other companies. That is for sure a different combo than talking to like entry level Calvin and I our first week. So that will be very much like a read the room kind of a situation. And, you'll know, I promise, because they will tell you almost immediately, like, hey, here's my experience. Here's my accomplishments, and here's, what I'm up to now. Maybe even like, here's why I'm looking to make a move. And then your job is to basically go in there and identify like, what did you do well? What did you like about where you're at? What's causing the change? It's that same discovery phase as you have with like a client, but why are you wanting to move now from your really high level role? And then what is this going to look like when you move over? That is for sure a different convo than I feel like we were probably pretty easy sales. Like, hey, you just got to work a shitload and like, you'll probably be fine. I was like, cool, that sounds like pretty simple. And then I got here and it was definitely different than that initially, but I didn't need to be over explained all the different parts of the business. It wouldn't have made sense to me anyway, because I'd never built or sold anything. So now you're like emptying your information, like overload mode, into somebody who I don't even understand what you're talking about, Greg. Like, all right, we're getting off task. I'm just like, what do I get paid if I sell something? Like, that's a much easier place to start for guys like us that don't have experience versus do.
Yeah. And like, you know, everybody understands when you've been in the business for a while, like how you get paid more than 100%. Like outside looking in, that I can't comprehend that. So there's no point of explaining that to somebody, because if you think about your first day, like how can you get paid more than 100%? I'm like that, nobody makes any money. That makes no sense, right? So just keep it as like, hey, you can get paid 100% commission for everything you sell. The average person sells between 800 and 1200 in commission per sale. Like anybody can understand that, you know?
Dude, one more thing then too. If like so, and for you guys, when you're talking to maybe like a high level producer at a different company or somebody who's grown a business and they're looking for something to supplement that or looking to get into a new line of business, I get like for you guys, you're like, hey, dude, it's pretty easy because you guys have a blueprint of exactly what you've done. But like, let's say if you guys were recruiting people, maybe when you guys hadn't had an agency built out yet, how would you go about talking to somebody, letting them know about the business, but also like you're like, hey, I haven't quite done it myself? Are you leaning on like the other people who have done it and saying, hey, these guys can help you, like there's a blueprint already for this? Or like how do you guys start that conversation with those guys?
Yeah, he's going to be a great example of this. Like he's done this way better than I have. But I'll just give you a quick answer, and he can probably answer it in depth. But like I would automatically incorporate somebody else. Like Eason, I'd be like, hey, Eason, I'm talking to this guy. He has this, this, and this. Can you jump on a quick call with us? And I can guarantee you that he would do anything to do that for you. So like I would immediately incorporate someone with like a massive team and with lots of results like he has. And he should be able to simply like just talk to that person, and he's gonna do way more good than anybody else could do during that call, in my opinion.
That, like, dude, using and abusing Zach's time as much as I possibly could was my way out of like having to do too much early. So I was very transparent, even with, probably, dude, I know it was for sure my first 9 months. Once I hit month 12, I had a really big like breakout sales month, number 12. But even when I started selling like 30 to 40, month like 3, 4, 5-ish, I still felt like I was just running volume and tripping into easy yeses. I still didn't know how to do the job. And that's what I would tell everybody. Like, listen, I found this thing, like I'm starting to get better at it. Like it took me a couple of months to learn how to make any money, but I'm starting to learn how to sell. And I've seen a little bit of this deposit vision come in. So I don't want to like try to over explain this to you because I'm so new and I'm pretty ass and I'm still learning a lot, but I can give you the skinny breakdown of the short version of the business. And then what I really want to do is have you talk to Zach, because he's a Hall of Fame producer. He's got 15 to 20 guys on his team and they're growing really fast. And he's, 23, just came off $406,000. So I'm just feeding people to Zach after I give him like a little overview and telling them up front that I'm new and shitty and I'm still learning, but I'm starting to figure some stuff out and it's really cool experience for me. I just don't have a high level experience yet. So I want you to talk to somebody who's been around a little bit longer. And I think there's exceptions now. So like grabbing somebody like a Calvin or me that have just been around a long time and sold enough that we have like valid results on paper. What I would do is look who's the closest person to you that's like maybe 150 to 350 selling a shitload of insurance and growing, because that is going to be more relatable than me acting like a senior citizen. Like, well, yeah, back when I used to sell in the house, like, dude, nobody sells in the house anymore. So like, I'm telling them about how I sold a lot, back in what feels like the 40s. So like, yes, results were what they were at that time, but I would rather get somebody who's actively 40, 50. Dude, Ty is the easiest person for me to sell in Denver. $139,000 in a month last year, went from 2 agents to a $450,000 team in 12 months. So I'm like, I want to have you talk to him because he's actively banging every day. And he's a total murder. He's an excellent trainer. He shows up for his guys, blah, blah. And I'm just overselling his exact results instead of having to talk about, back when I was horse and bugging to insurance homes, blah, blah, blah. It's less relatable than it would be for someone who's in it now, actively producing at a Hall of Fame clip. And then if it's a, next level player, then I would go, all right, cool. So now I'm going to go grab Zach. I'm going to grab a Calvin and have him fill the like really adult level gaps because I'm not quite there yet. I think that's kind of like what you're looking for to connect people with is if this person's goal is to come over here and absolutely just bang, who sells a shitload in my group that I can connect them with? And then if you have someone who's like, hey, I want to build, but I need to learn how to sell first, but I have, I've got a huge market. I've built teams before. Sweet. Then I would want to grab someone like Calvin and Zach, who's done both. So that's kind of what I would be looking for when you're early. Always sell. It was way easier to sell your lack of results because you're new than pitch fake results that you haven't accomplished yet. I think that's what hurts people more than helps them is overselling results that they could get someday but don't have yet, and like it's their situation now versus Greg, I'm ass, dude. I'm literally learning how to do the job, but it's starting to click. I had my first 35K month, so I'm starting to learn how to flip money, but I need you to talk to someone who's a little bit more grown up in the business. Here's this guy. And then you just connect them.
Perfect.
Because
Thanks.
guess what? Those leaderboards come out and they can read and they're like, thought you were selling 40. We're like, well, I was on pace to, but then I totally didn't at all ever. It's a really hard conversation to come back from.
Perfect.
So, all right, Calvin, we hit the hour mark, dude. I really appreciate you hopping on. Pretty excited to see where you guys land this year. Obviously, you're going to blow by 1 million by the time we get to December. I think as far as probably one of my favorite examples of no experience to your first full calendar year selling 500, and you can't do that if you're skillless. You literally have to work to get to that kind of a number. So yes, their skill set development is really important, which you did over time, but you were never shy about like, oh, the standard in the group that, we tried to set like from Zach down was always 40 to 44 plus appointments a week because everybody else was doing 30 and you just came in and executed and kind of learned very quickly as you went. So it's probably one of like the coolest, business partnerships that I've got to have since I've been here. So I appreciate you coming on and dropping some nukes on us today, dude.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a great group. Easton's the top G in the business. You guys couldn't be led by a better leader. Thanks so much for having me on. I truly appreciate everything. And if there's anything I can do to help anybody, just let me know. I'm always available.
Appreciate you, dude. You're the man. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
dude.